So Turning Point, number one, teaches people how to reprogram their minds so that they're communicating internally more effectively. Turning Point also helps you to learn the skill of irresistible influence, which is getting other people to beg you for what you're selling and have them believe it was their idea. And then finally, Turning Point does something that I warn people about because it's a double-edged sword. It could be dangerous.
Welcome to the Thought Leader Revolution with Nicky. Join the revolution. There's never been a better time in history to speak your truth, find your freedom, and make your fortune. Each week, we interview the world's top thought leaders and learn the secrets of how they built a 6 to 7 figure practice. This episode has been brought to you by eCircleacademy.com, the proven system to add 6 to 7 figures a year to your thought leader practice.
Welcome to another exciting episode of the podcast, The Thought Leader Revolution. I'm your host, Nicky, and boy, do we have an exciting guest lined up for you today. Today's guest is one of the world's leading thought leaders in the success space. He's a dear friend of a dear friend. In fact, a dear friend of our very first ever guest on this podcast, the one and only Raymond Aaron. I am speaking, of course, of none other than the one, the only, the legendary Marshall Sylver. Welcome to the show, Marshall.
Well, I am thrilled to be here, and you sound like you have a big-time wrestling background.
God bless your heart.
Thanks for that amazing big intro. You know me, I'm a carny. I like show business, so I like people that are larger than life, and you are clearly larger than life. And yeah, Raymond Aaron, man, what a great human being that is. Obviously, right before we launched the show, we were talking about his polar race.
Yes.
I think, was it called the polar bear race?
The polar race, actually.
Polar race to the pole. And, he lives in Canada, and I don't know if you're up in Canada, so he's a little more acclimated to it more than most people, but still, he did that trek when he was 62 years old, and I know you helped train him for that. What remarkable accomplishment that is. So good. Kudos to you if you helped train him, and kudos to Raymond, obviously, for accomplishing something so amazing.
Really, honestly, the kudos all belong to him. All I did was kind of sit in the background and point and say, do this and do that. He did all the hard work.
He has all his fingers and all his toes, and he made it through. He showed pictures, and I'm sure you've showed pictures of him too, where his whole face is covered in an icicle. It's just one big icicle. How did you survive that? So.
No, it's a great picture, and it is truly a magnificent accomplishment to get out of one's comfort zone to that level. And Raymond is nothing if not absolutely excited about doing larger than life things like the polar race, right? That's what makes Raymond an amazing man.
And right now I understand he's starring in a Broadway type show up in Canada. He's performing right now. I think that's very cool.
It is. I think so too. Are you kidding me? At his age, to be taking on new things like that just keeps you young and it keeps you vital and active. So God bless Raymond. So Marshall, pivoting back to you, the folks that listen to this show are entrepreneurs. And I know that you, like myself, believe that entrepreneurs are some of society's great heroes. They're the ones who dare to dream. And because they dare to dream, and they go after those dreams and help make them come alive, they move the human race forward, right? They create jobs, they create innovation, they create opportunity. And those are the folks who listen to my show, and I'm very privileged that they do so. They don't come here for me because I'm here every week. They're here for you. They want to learn from you. But before they can open themselves up to you, they got to get to know you. How'd you get to be the great Marshall Sylver?
Well, obviously, if you read my bio or if you don't know anything about me, I was born and raised on a farm in Michigan. I have 10 siblings, so there's 11. My mother birthed 11 children. The first house I lived in had no running water, no electricity, no phone. Often we had little, sometimes no food. Twice we were homeless. We lived for 30 days in the back of a station wagon in the middle of a Michigan winter. And then because we were going to die, the local community donated a motel room for the 11 of us to live in for a month. And when it was evident that wasn't going to work out long term, they renovated a chicken coop. And we lived in the chicken coop for 4 years. And while that may not be much to other people or a great place, to a 7-year-old kid that was used to living in a car or living in a house with no running water, it was heaven. And it had running water, it had electricity, and other than clucking when I get happy, no adverse side effects. But it was a really great way to grow up and be grateful for anything. And I think that that's, one of the foundational experiences that people have to get to is we must appreciate where we are now, because where we're at later will be where we're at now then. So if you can't be happy in your present circumstance, don't think that you're going to be any happier in a different circumstance, because it's just another moment. And people that are happy will be happy getting through anything, even though, we're faced with challenges like all human beings are. The way people deal with those challenges and the way they experience those things in their life will be the determining factor as to whether or not their life gets better, or whether they sit stuck in struggle and turmoil and, all that resistance that life gives everybody, or whether they embrace everything as it comes up and say, hey, what's good about this for me? It's looking for the pony in the pile of manure and realizing it has to be there, because how else did the manure get there? And I think that most people don't do that. These days, right now, I am at my beach house. I'm sitting in the theater of my beach house. I have a rig set up in here so that I can do podcasts like this, or, do virtual communication with people. And my main residence is in Las Vegas, 17,000 square feet. We call it Prosperity Palace. My home here in San Diego is in a little town called Carlsbad, or North County, San Diego. So we're right on the beach in Carlsbad. And I love that. Nothing better than living on the water as far as I'm concerned. And we are about to open up a brand new facility that I call Studio Money. And what Studio Money is it's for entrepreneurs. That's exactly why I've created this place. It is an entertainment and education venue designed to inspire people to wealth and designed to teach people. Music studios make music, movie studios make movies. Studio Money, we make money. And I love showing other people how to make money. I'm very selfish about that, because me helping other people make money makes me money. Not only that they pay me, but it increases the economy in general, which is good for everybody. So that's why I'm so excited about helping people. As you may know, obviously we have some mutual friends that are speakers and trainers and such. I deal a lot with the general public, yet the majority of my training is for people inside the information marketing industry. I show people not only how to better format their presentations. As a hypnotist, I have insight that a lot of people might not have. But I also believe that ultimately the point of business is to make money. And so if you are a coach or a speaker or a trainer, you probably got into the business because you like helping people. Except Amen. Altruistically, if that is your only motivation, you're probably not going to be able to help a whole lot of people, because you're going to be dead broke and you're going to have to take on a job just to pay your own bills and feed your own family. So I have a real passion for showing thought leaders, people inside of the business that we do, intellectual property business. I have a real passion for showing those people how to massively monetize what they do.
I love it. I love it. You know what? I share a similar passion. I've been in the thought leader space myself for a while, and let's break down some of what you just shared. So you talked about looking for the pony in the pile of manure, and that reminds me of a story I heard Ronald Reagan tell about two brothers, right? Who were, one of whom got a whole bunch of Christmas presents, and he was all upset because he didn't get the presents that he wanted, and the other one started looking at a pile of manure that was outside. He says, "Is that for me? Let me go in there. What are you doing? What are you doing? Man, I'm looking for a pony in there. There's got to be a pony in that pile of manure, man." And that was amazing. Looking at some of the messages that you've posted on Facebook, I'm just going to take a leap of faith and say you're
get me put in Facebook jail. Don't talk about those.
Yeah, no, I got that. But I'm going to take a leap of faith and say you probably were a fan of the late 40th president, because that was
big time, of course.
Yeah, and that story is a signature Reagan story.
It is, and I'm glad you noticed the reference.
Yeah. So,
and again, it's that idea of perfection. It's that idea that finding your life less than perfect is a waste of time. It is what it is, and I know that sounds very Zen. Except I wrote a short post the other day, and I was talking about the idea that we aren't born to be stressed. We aren't born to be in turmoil. We are born to thrive. And so the question then is, where did we learn how to stress about things? Where did we learn how to be in emotional turmoil as a result of the occurrences of our life? Animals don't really go into emotional turmoil. Yeah, they want to survive. And if they're hungry, yeah, they might be sincerely looking for food. If they're feeling threatened, yeah, they're certainly going to be hyper aware. But the moment that stuff is gone, animals don't carry grudges. I mean, they may not like, certain other entities. You might have a dog that doesn't like a certain person. We raise birds. We have birds, parrots, and the parrots are fonder of certain family members than others. But that's not emotional. That's just relational. No. And I think that a lot of people don't realize how much their emotions are getting in the way of their life. And that's not to say you shouldn't live a life with passion and love and joy and all that happiness. But the idea that you're worrying about what's going to happen next week or what's going to happen in, a couple of months, maybe it'll happen. Maybe it won't happen. Maybe if it doesn't happen, you'll realize you never should have worried in the first place. Maybe if it happens, though, you'll realize that God had a better plan than you did. And that divorce you were trying to avoid was the best possible thing for you so you could end up in a better place. That business that failed was the best possible thing for you because had you stayed on the course, the business would have failed. You might have ended up massively in debt or broke or in jail. And again, I believe in God. And I tell people all the time that I have a deep relationship with God, yet I'm not a very religious guy. And I'm not a very religious guy for a very specific reason. When I was a young man, determining what I was going to do with my life, I thought I wanted to be either a pastor in a church. I really was thinking that was going to be my path. And my father was a Catholic priest before he met my mother and sincerely fell off the wagon there. I was thinking about being an attorney because I love communication. And then I also was considering being a hypnotist. And ultimately I decided to be a hypnotist because it was the most honest profession I could get into and still make a boatload of money. And so while I love God deeply, I'm not very religious, yet I also know that, again, part of the process of loving God is surrendering to your life and recognizing it is what it is, and how you play your cards will determine whether or not you win the hand. So it's not what hand you get dealt, it's how are you playing that hand out.
Beautifully put. You mentioned that you live in Carlsbad. So my other friend that I said knows you, Mark von Muser, he until recently lived in Carlsbad. Now he lives in splits time between Big Bear City and Rancho Mirage near Palm Springs. And I used to be very involved in an organization called Landmark. Mm-hmm. And there was a man there who taught one of their courses, the wisdom course, and he lived in Carlsbad. His name was Paul Theroux.
Yeah, he's my next door neighbor. He's my next door neighbor. He lives right on the beach about 8-10 houses up from me.
I've been to his house.
Yeah, his house is gorgeous. It's one of my favorite houses on this beach. It's an Italian villa. And it's beautiful. And so I was jogging near Paul's house one day. I was jogging up and down the coast, and I always would run past his house. And so one day I'm in my running shoes and I'm in my running shorts and I'm running past his house, and this guy comes running out the door, and he says, "You're Marshall Sylver." Yeah. And he starts running after me, and I'm looking over my shoulder and I'm thinking, I don't know this person, and I'm running a little faster. He says, "No, please stop. Please stop." And so I stopped. He said, "I've been a huge fan of yours forever. I heard you lived in the neighborhood and I didn't want to bother you, but please hold on one moment." He runs inside the house. He comes back out 10 seconds later, and he's got all of my products. He's got all of my home study materials in his hand. And he said, "I bought all your materials. You changed my whole life." Well, turns out it was one of Paul's best friends, another guy named Alan.
I knew Alan too.
So Alan, great friend of mine, also part of my Inner Circle program. And Alan is just this remarkable human being, kind soul. And that's how I started that relationship. He said, Paul is a friend of mine, and I met Paul and the dogs that they keep there on the beach. And then I see Paul every once in a while when I'm running or he's running. And great human beings. But, Landmark Forum that you were just talking about,
Yeah.
was created by Warner Earhart
Warner
back
Earhart.
in the mid
Earhart Seminar
1980s.
Training. Est.
Yeah, back in the mid 1980s. And what a lot of
Yeah.
people don't know about Landmark Forum and about Warner in particular is most of the programs that are out and about, LifeSpring, Psy, all those other programs. They were all born from Warner Earhart's what used to be called Est, and
Yeah.
now is
70s.
Landmark Forum. And he
Yeah.
was the guy. They were all living up in San Francisco. They're all
Yeah.
dropping acid and smoking weed and having these creative ideas. And what a lot of people don't know is the original name for his seminar program, Est, was for East, being that the program was based on Eastern philosophies.
Yes.
And I'm preaching to the choir and all that, but it's a fascinating
100%.
story.
I was very much involved in Landmark for well over a decade. I was a Landmark introduction leader. I coached their self-expression leadership program several times. And I met the woman who did the documentary on Werner, The Life and Times of Werner Earhart. And I have it on DVD. I haven't watched it in several years, but at one point I watched it about a dozen times. And his life story is fascinating. If you've never had a chance to watch that documentary, Marshall.
I'm not. I'm taking notes right now. I want to see it because, he's a fascinating guy.
You have to see it. You have to see it.
He's still alive, isn't he?
He is.
Yes.
Robin Simon is the name of the woman who did the documentary. I've actually interviewed her on my podcast about 2-3 years ago. Lovely lady. Her and I did not share the same opinion about COVID. I was thinking it was a scamdemic, and she did not. So it was an interesting conversation from that point of view. We still like each other, but it was definitely a contentious conversation.
Well, I'm sure it would be slightly less contentious now that she realizes you were right.
Yeah, absolutely. But wow, Paul Turow lives 8 houses down from you. I've been to his house. I spent an afternoon there, years and years ago.
Yeah, like I said, it's one of my favorite houses. It's like an Italian villa. It's beautiful. It's fun.
He took me to the beach. I was on his, I volunteered to help fill up his wisdom course, right? So I was helping him enroll people. And he's one of the greatest enrollers I've ever seen. Like, the man is magic in front of a room. I mean, unreal how effective he is. I learned a lot of what I do on stage from Paul. But I miss him. I miss Paul. I've got his cell number, and I haven't called him in years. So I should give him a call one of these days because.
And you should tell him I said hello.
I will. I definitely will. God bless your heart. So, in addition to that, I've heard about your Prosperity Palace from Raymond. He told me it's one of the most stunning homes in all of Nevada. So tell us a little bit about this Prosperity Palace of yours.
Well, what's interesting about Prosperity Palace, yes, it's a remarkable home. It's 17,000 square feet. It sits on an acre and a half. And it was built by a spec builder who would build a house and then sell it, then build another house and then sell it. This was his home. This was where he was going to retire to. And so he overbuilt this house. And so you walk into the foyer, it's built very feng shui. The foyer ceilings are 35 feet tall. I know that because when I bought the house, there was a smoke detector at the very top. And we've got a 120,000 gallon swimming pool. I've got a purple tennis court, a putting green, half basketball court, skateboard park, dry infrared sauna, ice plunges. It's gorgeous. Got $2 million worth of artwork sitting in the house. It's just a beautiful place. But interestingly enough, because I'm now spending more time since COVID and all of that lockdown stuff happened, we locked down at the beach. I mean, if we're going to be locked down somewhere, we just assume be locked down at the beach. So we locked down at the beach. And in that time, though, my children, who are 14, 12, and 10, they because we were here for so long, they didn't develop any more friendships there. And so when COVID let up and we were able to travel more freely, they'd already been well ingrained into Southern California. So they didn't want to get on the jet and go back and forth between San Diego and Vegas anymore. They just wanted to stay in San Diego, which is why I opened up Studio Money and why I'm spending more of my time here, and why, as of 1 month ago, Prosperity Palace, my beautiful home in Las Vegas, is actually up for sale.
Wow.
It's up for sale, and I really want to bless somebody with it. So we're offering owner financing, lease to own, phenomenal 0% terms, whatever it takes to have somebody enjoy the house. Just because we're not there enough, and it's spectacular. Let me put it this way: the house is gorgeous, and I set it up for people that like to do masterminds or inner circle type events. So it's set up perfectly for doing very high end mastermind events. And we've done, I think I've done 70 there over the course of the 17 years that I've owned it. It's generated well over $70 million worth of revenue, and it's just spectacular. So yeah, Raymond Aaron was actually just there, maybe 6-7 months ago visiting me.
No kidding. That's amazing.
Aaron has been there. Most of the major speakers. Mark Victor Hansen was there.
Yeah.
Les Brown was doing push-ups in my great room.
Les Brown. God, that's awesome.
Robert Allen has dined there many times. So it's been great. It's a phenomenal place.
Raymond introduced me to Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen. And during COVID, I did an event with Mark, a free event for everybody called Your Finest Hour. And it was all about inspiring people because COVID was scaring the crap out of everybody. And we had Candace Owens as a guest speaker. We had John Maxwell as a guest speaker. We had the late, great Judge Kenneth Starr as a guest speaker. It was fantastic.
What fun.
Yeah,
fun.
Good times. So tell me all about your Studio Money.
Studio Money has 4 venues. We've got a VIP room that seats 30 to 40 people. It's got a big full video wall in there, vibe screen in there. It's got what's called smart glass. So it's like a conference room, but it's got smart glass. So you press a button and the glass goes from transparent to opaque. And that venue is for people doing like VIP masterminds, or we do previews in there. So, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we do preview events where people come in and learn about a topic and then, decide whether or not they want to buy additional training or anything from that offer. We have a room called The Vault, which seats 100 people, seminar style. Right. We have a room called Prosperity Theater, which can seat up to 600 people. All state-of-the-art, all LED walls. Prosperity Theater has 2 10-foot by 10-foot LED walls for your side screens. Then it's got a 10-foot tall, 20-foot wide LED wall for the back, fiber optic curtains. The stage is 60 feet wide, 40 feet deep. So you got plenty of space. It's gorgeous, absolutely stunning, gorgeous. But it's set up again for seminars because that's my business. So not only do we have the stunning venue there, but we've also got a VIP room that we use as a breakout for sales. So when people are doing events at our place, they can, break out and do their sales there. And one of the unique things about, in the 4th venue, by the way, is a room called Sterling Worldwide Studio. And it's a virtual studio. So it's a studio for virtual events with a 24-foot wide, 10-foot tall LED wall, and all set up for podcasts and remote events. And it's stunning. But here's the thing, and this is the other reason I built it. We do live events. So on any given month, I'm leasing, or at least I was leasing, hotel space for 4 to 6 days. So the amount of money that I would pay to rent a hotel space for 4 to 6 days, have my crew come in and set up audio, video, tear it all down, all the hassles with, coming in and going out. With all of that, we have a permanent space that we have for less money than we were paying for, 4 days, 6 days a month. And so what I do is, if you are a speaker or a trainer or an information marketer, if you do live seminars or virtual events, you can come use Studio Money totally free. We'll take care of your AV for you. We'll take, care of everything for you. The only caveat is you've got to have a minimum number of people. So we don't have people with 1 or 2 or 10 or even 15 people there. We want to make sure you have a full event planned, but I'll give you the venue for free. All you give me in return is 90 minutes to talk and teach to your people. And if you'll do that, we support that. That's what we want. We know that people fall in love with studio money. It enhances our audience. It gives a lot of people that are doing events a chance to reduce the risk or the expenses of their event so they can have a more successful event. So we officially open in June next month. And in the meantime, though, we've already hosted a handful of events, had phenomenal results. One of the people that we hosted there put 75 people into the room, and with my guidance and direction and coaching, did over $850,000 on his first event ever.
We should talk. Heck, I'll talk.
I think we are. I think we are.
I know we should talk. We should talk more than just about the conversation of the podcast. Let me tell you a little story that I think you're going to like. So I live in Canada, in Toronto, and during the lockdown era, we were locked down pretty hard, right? And I was doing a high-end thought leader mastermind event, which I can, get into more detail about another time. But the government was not allowing in-person meetings. We were trying to find some ways to get around it, and for a while we were successful. But then, my business just kind of crashed a little bit. We had about $500,000 worth of business that just disappeared. So in early 2022, I spoke with my friend Mark von Muser, and I said, Mark, man, I'm freaking out here, buddy. My business is crashing. Help. Right. What can I do? And he said to me, Nicky, give me a minute. And Marshall, he's one of these interesting cats that when he's thinking, you got to stay quiet, and he'll think right in front of you, and he'll zone in for a moment or two. And I'm not the world's most patient man, so I'm just waiting for him to snap out of it. And he goes, okay, I got it. Why don't you go be a guest on other people's podcasts, but not for the usual reasons to build your brand and get awareness, but to actually generate leads, sales, and clients. And I'm like, okay, sounds good. I'll try anything. Sure. How do we do that? And so Mark says to me, Nicky, and this is the greatest piece of coaching I've ever received, Marshall, from anybody at any time. And I'll quote it to you verbatim. He said, and I quote, I have no freaking idea, but we'll figure it out together. Right? So I found an AI-driven podcast guest matching platform called Podmatch, which on a daily basis will find you 24 shows for you to pitch. I mean, think about that. That's a lot of shows, right? So I go, okay, I'm getting on a lot of shows. This is great, but I'm not generating any leads, any sales, any clients. Anyways, Mark and I did after-action debrief reports after every single show I went on. It took me 100 shows to finally crack the nut and figure it out. On show 101, I got my first lead, my first sale, my first client. And part-time, 2 to 5 hours a week, over a 2 and a bit year period, we made just around $500K in sales from podcast guesting. The beauty of it is no ad spend, no any spend except $50 a month for Podmatch, right? So highly, highly profitable business. And I go to Raymond because, Raymond likes to come up with new ideas and new things. And I say, hey, Raymond, I just figured this out. Can I run it by you? He said, sure. He had me pitch it to a bunch of his clients, and 16 of them bought it. And ever since then, I've been pitching it to lots and lots of people. Here's what's interesting about podcast guesting. Most people do it wrong from the point of view of getting leads and sales and clients. They do a great job, many people, of going on a show and generating a lot of interest, a lot of buzz, a lot of excitement, but they don't really get much in the form of lead sales and clients. But we do. And Raymond really liked it. He had me bring it to a bunch of his events. And I believe right now, President Trump won the election in large part because he was a guest on some independent podcasts. Would you agree that that was a part of his victory,
yeah.
Right?
Media has changed.
Completely.
I grew up in media. So I've been on stage since I was 7 years old, and I'm at level 62 right now. I've been on stage since I was 7 years old. I got into broadcast when I was 17. Wow. I was a DJ at a radio station in Southern California called FM 104 K-Joy, beautiful and relaxing music to have your teeth drilled by. And I was there for a while, but I've also had numerous jobs in television and radio broadcast through the years. And terrestrial radio, terrestrial television, even terrestrial print, they're going away. I mean, they're not going to exist for much longer. But part of what's happened with Trump is and for the record, I'm a huge fan. I've shared the stage with him in person about 30 times. I've been the guy they put on either right before Trump or right after Trump because he was the draw and I'm the guy that sells things. So they wanted the room to be as full as possible when I came out to sell things. And I've been backstage in the green room with Trump on numerous occasions when there was nobody else in the room except for he and I. And he had no reason, he and me, I guess. And he had no reason to be polite to me or do anything that wasn't genuine. And every single time he showed me the utmost respect, the utmost kindness. And what a lot of people don't know is prior to him running for president in 2016, even though I had been backstage with him 30 times, he never shook my hand once. He was a germaphobe and he hated physical contact like that. And so like if I reach out to shake his hand, he would like give me an elbow to bump. And so I remember the first time when he was running in 2016 that people, a bunch of Christians were laying hands on him, and the media, as they always twist everything, were all over going, oh, you see, he hates Christians. He can't even let them touch him. No, they were touching his face and his neck and his hands, and they were all over him, and I'm sure it was hell. But, now he shakes hands and interacts with people. But again, he didn't want to do that. He did that because he had to do that. He did it because it was the right thing to do. And that's really just, a great indicator of what a great leader Trump is, that he does what he has to do. And I'm glad that you're broadcasting from Canada because I have tons of Canadian friends, and I don't know about any other Canadians other than my Canadian friends. My Canadian friends understand what we're going through here in the United States and understand that, frankly, you guys are going through it worse in Canada. These corrupt, left-leaning politicians that just 100%. Don't give a damn about the people they're supposed to be protecting and taking care of. They don't care. They're all selfish. Trudeau was as bad as Biden and as bad as Obama.
Worse.
Again, it's all perspective, but they're all crooks. And so you got a guy like Trump who's doing his best to figure out how to make things work. And, my Canadian friends, if Trump was, I don't even know if he's sincere, but, joking about making Canada the 51st state, people don't understand that's not an ego play. That's a play that says, no, we want to take care of all the citizens of Canada. We want to be in this together, but what we got to do is get rid of your corrupt government.
Well, here's listen, we'll come back to that part of the conversation. I
just wanted to give something that would rattle some people's cages so that.
And that's all good. I'm a huge Trump fan myself, but I'll come back to the political discussion in a second. Let me finish the podcast thought. Okay. But so Donald Trump won the election in large part because he went on a lot of independent podcasts. And I actually did a presentation about this to a group of CEOs, to several groups of CEOs near the end of the year. And they were all like, oh, wow. So him going on Joe Rogan, Theo Vaughn, Sean Ryan, Patrick Bet-David, and all these shows, and on Elon Musk's Spaces, garnered 500 million views. Kamala Harris went on one podcast that had under 1 million views, and the rest of the traditional media was under 5 million views. It is estimated by myself, and I'm a leading expert, perhaps the global expert on podcast guesting, that he generated 4 million new voters because of going on podcasts. Kamala Harris won just over 74 million votes. He won just under 78 million votes. It was the margin of victory, brother. Podcasts were the margin of victory for Donald Trump, okay? So the point I'm making to business people is that you need to understand podcast guesting and how to get on there to generate lead sales and clients, because it can be the difference between the margin of victory and defeat for you in 2025 and 2026. By 2027, everyone's going to figure this out, but today nobody's got it figured out. I want to have an offline conversation with you about how to make this get the attention that it deserves, because that's not been my skill set, to be honest, how to get massive global type attention. But I'll tell you, I can talk about this and get people excited about this and get them to buy this. More importantly, I'm good at selling it from stage. So perhaps we might have an opportunity to chat some business. But pivoting back, if you're open to that, let's set up a conversation offline about all that.
Yeah, for sure. And Nicky, that's exactly what I do, is that I have people like yourself that are really smart at what you do. and really understand your business, yet maybe don't necessarily understand exactly how to monetize that and exactly how to format the monetization side of it in the way that we do, at least. And everybody's different. But I want to get back to the idea of terrestrial media. Yeah, the writing's on the wall. It's already there. Newspapers are down. I don't remember the last time I watched traditional news. I just don't. If I want to know something, you go online, you Google it, you do a search and you say, what's this topic? And then you go through the list of all the people that are responding. You say, okay, that's not really a credible source. That's not a credible. Yeah, I can kind of believe this one. And so they're not going to recover. Back when COVID hit, I was renovating a theater, and I was getting ready to open up a place called Certainty Theater, also in Carlsbad. And then COVID comes right as I'd already put $1 million of my own money into the tenant improvements, and COVID came and shut the whole thing down. And when that happened, I said, we're not coming back. And my wife said, what do you mean? I said, this is probably going to go on for a year and a half, because the biggest reason it happened was for the elections in the U.S. And I hate to be arrogant in that way, but that was why the timing of COVID was what it was.
Sure.
That's what happened. And it was 100% created by Fauci here in the States. That man should hang. But what happened was everybody got locked down. And so everything shifted. And one of the biggest shifts was how people consumed content and entertainment. So the other thing is movie theaters aren't coming back. And why movie theaters aren't coming back, at least in the States, and I can't speak to any other country, is in the United States, while COVID was going on, after Biden got elected or after he was placed in office, the government gave people a lot of money. Why? Because that's what you do to addict people to drugs. You give them free samples to begin with. And so they gave the people in the States a lot of money. So all these people that aren't working, that are being forced to stay home, what did they do? They bought a bigger flat screen TV. They bought a nicer reclining chair. And now they consume their movies at home. And even when COVID lifted, movie theaters aren't going to recover, because now people got used to consuming that content from their recliner, where they can watch the movie on their clock. They can have whatever snacks they want at their price. They can pause the movie and go pee if they need to. They're not coming back. And so media, television, print, and radio, as people know them, terrestrial television, print, and radio, it's not coming back. And the Joe Rogans and the Patrick Bet-Davids and the Grant Cardones of the world, they are the media now. And so podcasts, but there's another side to this sword, though, and I know you know this. The beauty of podcasting is there's less barrier to entry. If I want to get my show on NBC, I got to jump through a bunch of hoops, and it's near impossible to do that. Podcasting, I can get on the air immediately. With that said, because there's less barrier to entry, there's more people entering, and 95% of all podcasts suck. They're bad. They're not worthy of attention. And so what people think, and I know you get this because you've been in the business, what people think is if I just do a podcast, people will pay attention. That's not the case. You've got to figure out what's your format, what makes you unique, what is your unique marketing or unique selling proposition that makes people say, I got to tune into Nicky's program because he has got the greatest guests and he asks cutting edge questions, and he says the truth. He doesn't try to be liked. He says, hey, if you don't like me because my opinion is this way, I get it, but that's my opinion anyway. And so whatever it is that people inside podcasting are doing, that is where we are headed. Now, that said, what even and certainly now he's far removed from that, but even the Joe Rogans of the world and the Patrick Bet-Davids of the world, initially, they didn't have any idea how to monetize their broadcasts. It had never been done before. And so advertisers didn't know how to place ads. They didn't know how to buy the media time. The formats are all across the board. Some people think the podcasting format should be 20 minutes. Some think, your broadcast should be an hour. And then the most successful broadcaster in history, Joe Rogan, has 4 and 5 and 6 hour broadcasts.
He does.
And so again, content is king, and that's what's awesome. So if you have a unique message, if you are a fascinating human being, if you are fun to be around, if you are controversial, if you're somebody that makes people polarize one way or the other, you got a chance. But if you're just a nice guy or gal, hang it up. Nobody's interested, and your niceness is going to kill you. So be a dick like me is what I'm saying.
So listen, my point in this
And
conversation,
you can bleep
with
that
you
out
is,
if Canadian broadcasters won't let me
all
say the
good.
word dick.
No, it's all
Be a
good, man.
Richard like me. Just be a Richard.
Yeah. So here's the deal. I don't think the average thought leader should get a podcast. I think they should be guests on other people's podcasts. Here's
Agreed.
3 reasons why. Number one, it's tough to be good on the air all the time, every week. It's tough to even commit to a weekly schedule. It's tough to get good guests. Listen, Marshall, I am constantly looking for guests. There have been times where I've been so busy and I've woken up at 2 a.m. going, oh my God, I had a podcast dropping tomorrow. I forgot to record the episode. So I get up in the middle of the night. I contact one of my friends on the other side of the world and I go, help. I need you to wake up right now. You're up right now. Let's record a podcast in the next half hour. And they go, isn't that 3 a.m? And I go, yep, it's 3 a.m. Don't worry about it. And I record a podcast. I drop it in. My team grabs it first thing in the morning. They get it up and they get it going. You don't want to have to go through that kind of stress. If you're a guest on someone else's show, you don't need to commit to a timetable. You don't need to commit to spending money on a show. All you need to do is have a good perspective. You need to be honest and able to articulate your message, and you can make money by being a guest on a show. It's that powerful. It's that brilliant. You don't even have to be somebody with big energy like Marshall Sylver. I have a guy who did my program, one of Raymond's clients. He's an accountant. He is the driest man on the planet. He is a tax accountant, Marshall. He's a tax accountant. This guy came on the show, his very first show that he went on. As a result of what I taught him, he got himself a relationship that's delivered for him 17 clients in a year. 17 clients in a year. That's a beautiful thing. I've had guys on the show who don't speak English as their first language, man. They learn the methodology. This one guy, English was his fourth language after Dutch, French, and German. And he went on English language shows and he made $124,000 in sales. It's a beautiful thing if you're a guest on other people's podcasts. It works better. But the point is, the podcasting medium is powerful. The podcasting medium is the one you should be on. Ads is terrestrial media. It's old style media. Ads are not the way to go forward, in my opinion, at least not traditional ads. Podcasting is the way to go forward.
I would agree. It's people consume their content differently now. They don't sit down like we used to and, have our meal and then right after our meal, go sit down and watch the nightly news to catch up with the world. We just don't consume that way. And I don't even think the attention span will allow it anymore. People are stuck on their screens. They're used to sound bites. I've never watched an entire Joe Rogan episode from beginning to end other than Trump. When Trump was on, I did watch that, but I've never watched it. I'm ADD. I'd never get through a 4-hour broadcast. Not going to happen. But, I certainly like his clips and I like his honesty. And so, for me, yes, I have a philosophy, and the philosophy is you ask the question, where's the money? And so that's the thing that, when somebody is a guest on a podcast, they should be saying, what am I there to do? I'm not there to be a celebrity. I'm not there to be cool. I'm not there to, have people know me. You need to be focused on what your outcome is. So if you're selling something, you need to be focused on what you're selling. And you need to make sure that that gets into the message. You asked me right before we jumped on, what would you like to promote? And we have an event. I've been doing it for over 40 years. It's called Turning Point. In fact, your friend Mark, I think when you said the name again, I remember the name now. I think he's been through Turning Point, which is why he was considering some of our other programs. But, we've been doing it for 40 years. I've helped people make billions with a B, billions of dollars through two things. Through understanding our life is based upon communication, and we communicate in two ways. Internally, the 1,500 words per minute that are going through our brain, telling us who we are and who we aren't, what we can be, what we can do, what we can have. That's called programming. And then external communication to the outside world, that's called influence. Since your life is an echo of what you're putting out, since you get back what you put out, when you put out better communication, you will echo back more cooperation, more opportunity, and more business. And so you have got to learn how to communicate. So Turning Point, number one, teaches people how to reprogram their minds so that they're communicating internally more effectively. The second thing Turning Point does is Turning Point also helps you to learn the skill of irresistible influence, which is getting other people to beg you for what you're selling and have them believe it was their idea. And then finally, Turning Point does something that I warn people about because it's a double-edged sword. It could be dangerous. And that is Turning Point turns up your wantingness. What do I mean by that? It gives you back your mojo and your motivation and your drive because it makes you want a bigger life. You step out of complacency. You step out of thinking, gosh, I just want to get my bills paid. And you say, no, I don't want to just get my bills paid. I want a private jet. No, I want a private island. I want to buy my parents a house. I want to make sure that my kids have a trust fund that gives them better options. And so Turning Point, that's what it does. So on this show, I want to invite 10 of your folks who watch this broadcast, watch this podcast, to contact my offices and say, hey, I want 2 tickets to Turning Point. Turning Point sells for $3,000 a ticket. They can check it out at Sylver, Sylver, like my last name, sylver.com/TP to find out what it is. But if you're one of the first 10 people who hears this and calls my office and says, hey, I was on the show that you were on the podcast with Nicky, if you're one of the first 10 people, we'll give you 2 free tickets. Just come visit with us. Come check it out at Studio Money and have your life changed forever. Just tell them you heard me on this podcast and you want to know if the tickets are still available.
I love it. And when's your next Turning Point event?
We do it about every single month. So we've got one coming up at the end of this month at Studio Money. And then, like I said, we do it about every single month.
That's awesome. We'll make sure that's in the show notes. So, Marshall, I'll probably want to have you back on to have a purely political discussion because I think that'd be fun.
That sounds good to me.
Yeah, let's do it.
I think people need to talk about it. I think that I think the challenge is big tech, and this may be a good transition on the close here. Big tech, mainstream media, they all are conspiring, and not for the general public's benefit. They are all conspiring for the deep state. And it's not just deep state in the U.S., it's deep state around the world. The central bankers, the Rothschilds, and all the blue blood families that set up where we are right now, they don't want anybody to know the truth. And so early on, the Rockefellers here in the United States realized that if we can control the narrative, we control everything. And then the second thing they realized, if we can control the currency of a country through the central banks here in the United States, through the Federal Reserve, then we can control the entire population. And then, additional movers and shakers in the world realized, there's one last area. If we can control people's health, we own them. If we can convince them that pharma is a better solution to their health than just healthy living, healthy food, healthy water, healthy activity, healthy lifestyle. If we can convince them that there's a pill that can save them or transform them or heal them, my God, we'll own those people, and we'll never cure them. We'll always keep them in a slight state of ill health so we have customers for life. And that's where we find ourselves. So, if I can throw a big wrench into the gear or a bat into the belfry right now and you get people stirred up, again, I don't know that people know. We Americans, we love our neighbors to the north and our neighbors to the south. We don't have anything against anybody. Trump is right on the tariff question. Trump is right on the idea that countries need to trade more unilaterally. It's not healthy for either side. What people don't understand is China and what they've done with their economy being an export economy and not a balanced import-export economy.
They're mercantilist, brother. They're mercantilist. That's the proper term. Because mercantilist countries are all about only exporting, minimally importing to seize the wealth of other nations through their export philosophy. It is actually, in the long run, antithetical to having harmony in international relations.
It's impossible. And here's why. Here's why. And the reason why that model it works short term really well. If you go to China, and I've been over there 22 times to tour and teach and perform, if you go to China and you want to buy anything not made in China, and I'm talking 10 years ago was my last trip, if I wanted to buy a Rolls-Royce Phantom in China, there was a 125% tariff on that car. Then, before all the tariff wars and all this stuff that we're dealing with right now, there was 100+% tariff then on most goods brought in. In addition, they don't want currency. They don't want revenue leaving China. So if you make money in China, the government takes a big piece of that just so you can get it back out to your home country. So, again, the challenge with that, though, is where we are now is while China has thrived, and the countries that do that, they put a huge tariff on anything coming in and, export beyond what they bring in, no balance in their trade. What happens, though, is this. That is their economy. The United States, whether people like the Americans or not, I get it. Whether people like Americans or not, we are consumers down here. We buy 30% of anything consumed in the world is bought by a U.S. citizen. And so the buyers always control the equation. If the buyers quit buying, guess what? The sellers are out of business. And that's what's happening in China right now, is they're finding themselves in a place where we're 30% of the world's consumption. We're 80% of China's exports. So, if 80% of your business goes away, that's not just your profit, that's your entire business. So, yeah, when Trump says they don't hold the cards, they don't really hold the cards right now. And it's not ego, because from the beginning, Trump said, and I know you wanted to talk about politics next time, so next time we will. But what Trump has proposed are reciprocal tariffs. Tariff us what we tariff you. Just make it even. And I think that would be best for everybody, because the only people that win with tariffs, guess what, are governments. The citizen doesn't win. So get rid of tariffs altogether, yes. But in order to get rid of them, we have to get countries to agree to reciprocal, which means they're balanced. And if they're balanced, get rid of them altogether. That's when the citizen wins.
China will never agree to reciprocal tariffs, but I think what they will be forced to agree with is they'll be forced to get rid of a bunch of their tariffs on American goods. And I think Donald Trump is going to make sure that the balance of payments in trade is going to be zero. There's not going to be a $300 to $400 billion a year balance of trade, balance of payments deficit for China. A mercantilist nation like China is interested in seizing the wealth of its trading partners. They're not interested in win-win relationships. Trump gets this. That's why he's done what he's done. I got to tell you, I don't agree with what he did to Canada, because Canada's balance of payments with the U.S. is $30 billion. That's it. It's not a lot of money. And if you take energy out of the equation, we actually buy more from the United States than you buy from us. It's only that the U.S. buys so much crude oil from us that has the balance of payments be where it's at. And what Trump said about the 51st state, it was a troll. It was a troll meant to hammer Trudeau, and I appreciated it for that. But what it did when he repeated it a couple of times is it got a lot of Canadians who have a bit of a love-hate relationship with the United States, who fear the United States, quite frankly, get so freaked out that all the center-left people in Canada, and this is a center-left nation, unlike America, which is a center-right nation, they all coalesced around the Liberal Party, and they defeated the Conservatives in the election, even though the Conservatives won the most vote they've won in 37 years. It didn't matter because the progressive vote wasn't split. The second progressive party, the New Democratic Party, normally wins 17 to 19% of the vote. They only won 6% of the vote. So the bloody Liberals won. And the Liberals in Canada aren't really liberals. They're far left, quasi-fascist SOBs, and they are the enemies of God and the enemies of goodness and grace and mercy in the world. For that, I'm not happy that President Trump said what he said. I wish he.
So you're saying the liberals in Canada are the same as the ones in America, in the U.S.?
1,000 times worse.
So I want to get back to one thing though, and again, I don't have all the answers, and neither do you, and neither does Trump, and neither does anybody. But I'll tell you this, that again, getting back to that idea of reciprocal tariff, that is the balancing point. And that is where citizens should keep their focus, is when we can get to that place, then everything does work for the citizen. People say, oh, the cost of goods are going to go up if there's tariffs imposed. Yes, they can go up. But then we as consumers vote. If the iPhone is tariffed to the degree that I don't want it anymore, if it's gone up to $3,000, I say that's a stupid price for a phone, then I don't buy an iPhone. I buy a Pi phone, which just like Tesla is going to be manufactured 100% in the US. There's no tariff on that thing. They won't be able to compete, which is why Tim Cook has already promised to bring $500 billion, $500 billion worth of build outs for factories to produce Apple products here in the US. That a good country. That's what a good leadership would want to do, is inspire people to
100% agree.
produce, manufacture in their borders with their workers, because then their workers benefit. But I think there's one more piece.
You and I are on the same page on this. And I believe
Well,
most
the
countries
last
agree
thing I
with
just
you.
want to say on all of that, none of that works.
Most countries agree with you. The one country that doesn't is China. I don't think they're going to agree to it. But the rest of the world is going to come on board with what you're saying.
Yeah, the China won't have a choice. Again, I've been there. I've been there plenty of times. They're not going to have a choice. They are built as an export economy. The only way with slave labor, the human, what's the word I'm searching for? The human rights level in China is so bad. It's terrifying. The human rights conditions in China, if you are in a particular caste, you're less than human. You are literally a slave, and it's terrifying. It's horrible. I'm shocked that the rest of the world hasn't come in and said, no, you can't buy anything from China. This is how they treat their people. And again, I have lots of Chinese friends. I'm not talking about the idea, the race of being Chinese. I'm talking about the Chinese Communist Party and how they do things there. They won't survive any kind of a reduction of trade, because they're already paying people nothing. They can't cut back their expenses. They can't shift their strategy. What do I think will end up being one of the things? They'll attempt to ship goods to another country to see if they can slide it in a back door and eliminate the tariffs. They'll probably move their factories to other places. They might also temporarily have slave-type labor. And again, those games will go on. But they cannot do their
but you see,
commerce the same way anymore. They won't be able to.
I agree with you. And again, we'll have a longer political discussion, because I'm gonna need to have us wrap this up in a minute. But and I'm going to enjoy that political discussion with you. We'll book an hour and a half for that, because I think we're going to need.
we may need a Joe Rogan.
We're going to need one of those. But Marshall, I'm going to tell you this, and this is really important. I come from Iran. I come from a tyrannical, totalitarian place. Okay, I grew up there.
You get it. Yep.
I want you to understand, these people, if they feel that they're not going to be able to save face, they'd rather go to war. They'd rather kill millions.
Yep.
Than they would to give in. There needs to be a way to not make this appear like they caved. Because if it looks like they caved, I think they'll invade Taiwan. That's what I think is going to happen. That's what I think is going to happen. And if they invade Taiwan, I got news for you. America's not going to sit by and go, okay, you go ahead and grab Taiwan. They're not going to do that. They're not going to do that.
I don't know that. I don't know that. And again, we've got lots to talk about. But again, here's what I think. The beauty of the concept of communication equaling wealth, and the idea that the truth shall set us free, which it does, is the beauty of this conversation you and I are having. You're up in Toronto. I'm down on the other side of the continent, down in San Diego. And we're having a conversation like this because of technology. Technology allows us to communicate better. Now I can reach out to my friends in China, and I can say, what's really going on there? And they can tell me, this is, last time I toured there, one of the things that was shocking to me is, I don't know if you're familiar with the ghost cities in China.
I am.
So they have massive amounts of construction projects, cities that are built. There's no one there. There's not one resident in the entire city, yet an entire city is built, and they're beautiful. I mean, anybody would want to live there, but nobody's living there. Why? Because they only built them so that it would appear as if their economy was doing well. That's the only reason they're built. And so because of technology, I can call up my friends in China, on a Zoom, and I can say, hey, what's going on over there? And they can say they're firing workers. The economy is struggling. The government is rounding up, people, whatever. That's the difference of where we are now. That's why the narrative, mainstream media and big tech are such an important part of the entire puzzle for these people that want to control the general population and want to continue to make us slaves, that they're losing their hold on that, which is why here in the U.S., at least, there's talks of them, at least during Biden regime, not his admin during his regime, they're trying to control the internet. They want, again, we're seeing it over in England where they're arresting people that have a message that isn't what they want to have projected. That's insane.
They're arresting people for memes, for freaking memes.
Yes.
10-year prison sentences. It's nuts.
It's insane. So the beauty is, though, we're having this conversation. That's the beauty. And we have to keep having these conversations. And we also, I want just one last thing, because it's gotten kind of heated and we've talked about some heavy topics and I'm sure there's going to be some people riled. I just want to say this, everything's hypnosis. And so when somebody says something really stupid on social media or somebody has a massively opposing opinion to what I hold, I pause and I breathe and I say, what would get them to that place? How have they been communicated to? Because I feel bad for people that are far, far left, because, their idea that there's 37 genders or that human life, doesn't begin until we say it begins, and you can kill a baby a month after it was born and that's still, just an abortion. That's not murder. Those people got to that way of thinking somehow. And so have a little bit of grace, have a little bit of understanding and compassion, at least to give them the benefit of the doubt, to know that they're not horrible people. They're horribly misinformed. That's all.
Amen. For most people, that's true, although there is evil in the world. And we should never forget that. There is evil 100%. In the world. Marshall Sylver, we're going to do an hour and a half politics only podcast. I'll reach out to you for that.
I can't wait,
I'm going to send you my cell phone number. Please message me. Let's stay in touch. I want to talk about potentially doing something together. God bless you. Thanks for coming on the show. Folks, Marshall Sylver is the real deal. We're going to have his information in the show notes. Marshall, give the website you want to send people to for this.
They can go to Sylver, SYLVER.com /TP. The letter TP stands for Turning Point. Or they can, and I don't know if it's an international 800 number, they can also contact my office on 1-800-92-POWER. But the easiest way is just through the website. Give us a message. Tell everybody you heard this interview, you're fascinated, and you want to come to Turning Point.
Okay, great. I've never been to Turning Point. You know what?
Well, you know what? Call 1-800-92-POWER now.
There you go. I got an in, so I might use my in, and we'll make it happen. But I'm going to talk to my lady, and we'll see what we can do. So, folks,
we'd love to host you.
Yeah, I'd love to be there. It'd be great to come and have another long visit to California. Maybe I'll see if I can drag Mark to come with me too. We'll make it happen. But folks, Marshall Sylver is the real deal. Make sure that you go to his website, sylver.com, and you check out sylver.com /TP. If you enjoyed this episode, give us a like, give us a rating, give us a review. That always helps with the algorithm. So please do that. And if you have a friend who would benefit from this message, share it with them. That's the beauty of technology. All you got to do is just forward this and say, hey, I listened to this podcast and I thought of you. I think you'd like what they have to say. Marshall Sylver, an honor to have you here, man.
Thanks, friend. Have an awesome day. God bless.
You too. And that's a wrap.
This episode has been brought to you by eCircleAcademy.com, the proven system to add 6 to 7 figures a year to your thought leader practice.